experience as a fundamental emotion. And it's shaped by clues that an organization leaves intentionally, or sometimes, a lot of times not. We unintentionally leave clues about the experience that we're giving our consumers without meaning to. And so the whole thing kind of wraps into the goal of customer experience then, and I still believe now, was not about fixing problems, but it's about engineering memories and creating feelings for people.
You ask in CX, they answer back. Real CX leaders giving real feedback. Heard in CX.
Welcome back to Heard in CX, where we have real CX pros answer real questions from the CX Accelerator community. It's not a panel, it's not a webinar, and it's most certainly not a podcast. I like to call it a little tiny cast. Today, I am with Debbie, and she is going to help me on how to pronounce her last name.
It's Szumylo. I always tell people to remember it phonetically. The Z is silent, but some are high, some are low. Szumylo.
Ooh, Szumylo. Am I saying it right?
You are. You're perfect.
Okay. Well, today I'm with Debbie Szumylo, and she is a customer experience and employee experience leader out in St. Paul, Minnesota, and she's helped build some of the first turnkey CX programs for banks. Back when experience wasn't even a word that banks were using. She built side by side with Lou Carbone and Joe Pine. And 20 years later, she's still one of the clearest voices on experience and change in this community. Before we jump into getting to know a little bit more about you with icebreaker questions,
Sure.
as well as you answering some questions that come directly from members from the CX Accelerator community, I want to play a fun little mini game with you. Are you open to that?
I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to call this one Buzzword Graveyard. I will say a CX buzzword, and then you will call alive, dead, or bury it.
Okay, got it.
All right, guys.
Okay, got it.
Here we go.
Yep.
Journey mapping.
Live.
Omnichannel.
Oh, I'm going to say dead.
Delight.
Oh my gosh. Bury it like 10 years ago.
Touch point.
Oh, alive.
Synergy.
It's between dead and alive. We're going to waffle on that one a little bit.
Okay, Frankenstein it.
Right.
Voice of the customer.
Alive.
Frictionless.
Oh man, I would say it's alive. Can I tell you I'm hesitating on some of these?
Yes,
Just because,
yeah,
first of all, the words have been overused and they don't mean what they used to mean. That's why I'm hesitant on some of these.
You're good. Well, so expand a little bit on that. What do you mean when you say the words don't mean what they used to mean?
So frictionless. Tell me what that means. If you ask somebody what frictionless means, odds are they're not going to be able to describe to you what it really means, and especially what it really means to the customer. Words like that have just become so easy to throw out there with not a lot of understanding behind them.
Yeah, I think it's really nice that you called that out. These
Sure.
buzzwords show up so much, and they get thrown around in these budget meetings, and they get thrown around in these strategies meetings.
Yep.
But then when it comes time to be actionable with them,
Right.
what did that mean? Well, you made it through our first buzzword
Yay.
graveyard. Yay! Easy, huh?
That's awesome.
All right. So now we're going to get to know a little bit about you. And I
Okay.
want to ask you this. In a talk that we had before, you told me that you learned directly from Lou Carbone and Joe Pine. And this was before customer experience was even really a job title. What would you say is one thing that they taught you that you still carry with you into every program?
Sure. I think the biggest thing would be a combination of what their methodology was and the way they thought about the experience, is that experience isn't a byproduct, it's a design decision. Every step of an experience needs to be intentional. So Joe Pine and James Gilmore, they talked about, probably one of the first books, about how value comes from experiences, and experiences need to be designed. And it's not about goods and services any longer. It has to be deeper than that. Some goods and services better be your table stakes, and they better be done well. And now people, customers, consumers are expecting more than that. So not leaving anything to chance. It needs to be designed. And that's sort of where that intention comes from. And then Lou Carbone took it a step further and started talking about experience as a fundamental emotion. And it's shaped by clues that an organization leaves intentionally, or sometimes, a lot of times not. unintentionally leave clues about the experience that we're giving our consumers without meaning to. And so the whole thing kind of wraps into the goal of customer experience then, and I still believe now, was not about fixing problems, but it's about engineering memories and creating feelings for people.
Well, while you were saying that, I was thinking back to this phrase that I kind of live my life by a little bit. It's not about what you say to people, it's about how you make them feel.
That's my favorite quote.
Yeah, is it really?
It is.
I love that
Hi,
quote.
Angelou. Yep, I love it.
Yes, I love that too. Why should that only be person to person? It should exist from brands to consumers, from
Absolutely.
brands to their employees. So I absolutely love that. I'm a little curious, as someone that's learning from interviewing all of you amazing CX leaders. Tell me a little bit about Joe Pine and Lou Carbone. Like, how did you guys cross paths? When you say you learned directly from them, like, how did that come to?
So my company at the time was a big check printer, and check printing, people don't write checks anymore. And at the time, checks were losing value. And we had to come up with something to kind of reinvent ourselves. And I was fortunate to be part of this amazing little team that we ran on caffeine and 80s music. And we did a survey, and we found out from our customers, which were bankers or credit union leaders, what kept them up at night. And the fear for them was, at that time, brick and mortar banks were starting to also disappear. Walmart had a bank, State Farm or somebody, like all these different places were coming up with banks that weren't banks. They weren't traditional banks. All of a sudden their competition, just like everybody else's, changed. And those places tend to provide better service than a bank could. So we started thinking about how can we help our customers be better for their customers. And that's where we got involved with Joe and Lou. And we brought them in, they laid out their entire methodology. We walked through it. We spent probably the first 2 to 3 years working with them, met some really cool people that they knew, did some really cool experience things. And then eventually we decided, we're overshadowed here. When we go to a conference and we want to speak, everyone wants to hear Joe or Lou and not us. And so we need to figure out how to make this ours now. And so that's when that separation kind of happened. But it was a really good run with them of many years learning side by side, and then pulling in additional partners that are still kind of those solid people that kicked off this whole industry. That's how it started.
That's so interesting. Specifically, how cycles repeat themselves, right? Or like how you're mentioning the checks and the brick and mortar banks were getting worried about competition. And in terms of cycles, right, it's almost sort of happening again. Like I see all of these online banks pop up. And it's interesting to see how, yes, at first there was a giant migration of customers from these, brick and mortar banks to these online banks. But for example, Capital One now opened up these Capital One cafes because people still crave the human experience.
Oh,
you can never, this is just coming from my own personal experience, but I feel like you can never just trust the online bank. Like I want a place where I can go and speak to someone about my money. And so just a curious, parallel. I guess banks always have to be improving their experience. It's just these cycles are repeating even nowadays.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we also pulled in different teams of customers and had them work side by side with us to design specific parts of just your banking journey as a consumer. And we'd work with them for a year, and then we'd share that information out to the entire industry. All of our customers would show up at a conference. But one thing that will never leave my mind is we did ethnographic research where we'd go into someone's house and they'd tell us a story about their bank. And a customer of a bank said, going to the bank is akin to going to the dentist.
Ooh.
And I thought, wow, you're not having a good experience at your bank if that's how you're feeling.
Yeah, that sounds like painful. Like
it was very telling. We uncovered some awesome nuggets like that, but that was very stark. The whole thing that I took away from them is you need to get to the emotional truth that's underneath the metric. And that way you can intentionally design around that truth.
And so I'm going to have you expand, because I think that was actually just the answer to our community, our CX Accelerator community question. And this one comes from Donna Dremen. And she asks, which components of the CX program that you built from scratch have stayed with you or stayed consistent over the years?
I mean, the first thing, like I said, it's start with the story, not the survey. I think that doing that ethnographic research was so revealing. And I do something different now where I do a one-on-one interview with CEOs at law firms. And same thing, I'm getting to the heart of the matter. Tell me where we let you down. Like, tell me, I want to know. And so going into their home, their place of work, there's no script, you're just listening. That has reshaped everything I've done since I started doing that. So the survey is going to tell you if, people are willing to check a box and get a survey done and get it out the door just so you stop harassing them about getting done. But when you're having an unscripted conversation like that about what keeps them up at night, there's a connection there. There's a kind of listening that a lot of companies don't do anymore for their customers. And so I definitely build in something like that. And then the next thing would be that I'm building a system, not a project. This isn't a one-time thing, and it needs to be scalable. It needs to go across every department. I think that's the difference between a CX program and a CX moment. You can have all those moments, but what you're really after is a program. And so much to the point that, you ask yourself, when I leave, whatever form that looks like, will this still be something that's valid and up and running? Will it still run on its own without me? And then you know that you've developed your program. There's three parts to this. The last thing is that if it doesn't live cross-functionally, it doesn't live at all. A lot of times companies will have their CX team or whatever, but truly your CX team are your frontline people that are talking to your customers and interacting with your customers every day. They need to understand why it matters, even if they don't think it matters to them. And I've spent a lot of time with employees in legal software companies where I worked at last. And, the legal techs are guys and ladies that serve and sit behind their computer and do all the internet things and all the IT broken things. They never talk to a customer, but many of them had no idea that their job does in fact impact a customer. And so it's a whole retrain your brain thing. Those are kind of the three things. I listen to the story first. I make sure that it's something that can live on. It's a system or a program. And then finally, I make sure that it's more than just living in a CX department.
Wow. That's a mini masterclass for you guys. Anyone that's watching, no, seriously. That's a mini masterclass for the fundamentals of where your mind should be when you're building a customer experience program.
Heard in CX, come ask away. We got CX leaders talking real day.